we're celebrating Black History Month,
You can't tell the history of Rockford without Allen Chapel.
showing you in-depth stories of perseverance.
Alpha was founded. Why? Because black men were still being lynched.
Plus, highlighting the accomplishments of trailblazers and success in the Black community. You're watching Black Culture Amplified. Good evening and welcome to 13 WREX's Black History Month special, Black Culture Amplified. I'm Brittany Hardaway. Well, we left the studio and decided to film in a place that holds so much meaning, here at the African American Resource Center at Booker. And as you can see, Black history is on full display. It's a place that's been anchored in Rockford's community for over 100 years. You might not realize how close you are to incredible Rockford history.
We're a well-kept secret.
On the southwest side of town sits the African American Resource Center at Booker, a hidden gem home to an abundance of Black history.
This center was founded as a Black Soldiers Club back in the early 1900s, because there was no other place. There was exclusions around the area because the soldiers couldn't come in as a refuge or a place for gathering because they weren't allowed. Kwanzaa.
Karen Waller, Booker's operations manager, says more than 100 years later, the center's legacy is alive and well.
We are the oldest community center in the state of Illinois. We are the oldest Black community center in the state of Illinois.
For decades, the Booker Center has turned into a place families can turn to for resources and services like youth outreach, employment opportunities, and a community to fellowship.
Well, I've been coming since the early 60s.
Miss Jeanette Walker remembers all the good times she had during her teenage years at the center.
I think one of my favorite memories, well, I got a couple. One was the skating. Everybody looked forward to come for the skating. And believe it or not, I could skate back then.
In the midst of the civil rights movement, a time where Black people took a stand against racial segregation, the Booker Center was always a bright spot.
Booker was our safe haven. We know we could come together. We know we were going to be coming together with people that we go to school with, that we interact with on a regular basis. So, it just felt good. It was like family.
A family spanning across the state line.
Other than our public schools, we didn't have a place to go for the teens. And it wasn't just for the South Rockford. We had attractions of people from Freeport, Beloit, Loves Park, all that came around.
From the early 1900s until now, a lot has changed.
An area where you can come and get most of your basic needs met. Now, we want to be that full service type of resource center.
Leaders working to improve the community and give the next generation a place they always feel welcome.
When I look at the center now, I think about growth and how it has developed and how it is generating people now, young adults now, in various activities that in years to come, it's going to make a difference in their life.
You can tell by the fact that when the parents come to pick them up and says, "Mom, can I stay a little longer? Dad, don't pick me up yet. It doesn't close yet." So yeah. So those are the things that tell us in a more intangible way that this is working. I mean, that's the rewards that we get.
Such a positive atmosphere. And people that don't know about Booker, they really need to come and get involved.
From one historical treasure to another, Rockford's oldest Black church is a staple in our community. Tonight, we go inside Allen Chapel AME and explore the deep roots of how the church has shaped the culture.
Rockford wouldn't have succeeded without Allen Chapel because they were like one of the backbones of Rockford. But yet we're left out of Rockford's history in so many ways.
Founded in 1891 by Peter Thomas Blakely, a former slave who ran the Underground Railroad, Allen Chapel AME Church was the first ever Black church in the city of Rockford.
When I heard that, I said, it was like a wow moment in my life that I was able to come to a place where something has always been embedded in the community for so many years.
The Black community used the church as a place to organize during a time of violent racial conflict.
Then I began to see and hear all the tradition and how they came through so many different tug of wars, and especially just a little bit In Rockford, we have a little bit more prejudice here, but yet and still the church were able to survive and struggle through all of those, and yet still to survive as it has already.
During World War I, black soldiers from Camp Grant saw the church as a safe haven.
At that time, they couldn't use any of the facilities, like the entertainment or anything at Camp Grant. So Allen Chapel became the meeting place for them, as well as for other activities that were going on in Rockford.
Allen Chapel's congregation was even on the front lines of racial turmoil during the civil rights era.
The major thing is never forget where you came from. Always remember, because that's our lifeline.
Forever a beacon of hope, this church will be deeply embedded in Rockford's history.
Our history is just so rich, and we invite people to come and learn about the history of Allen, because it's out there, and without us, a lot of things would not have happened in Rockford.
Northern Illinois is filled with important Black history. Nearly 200 years ago, a secret path to freedom was right here in the state line. Let's take you to Byron, Illinois, where a house still standing today was a stop on the Underground Railroad. Centuries of Black history in plain sight right in our community.
The house today is on the corner of Route 2 and Route 72.
The Reed House served as a route to freedom for Black people trying to escape slavery.
They came from Missouri and then jumped across the river and then worked their way toward the Chicago-Milwaukee area. And so Byron is on the very northern part of that. That was called the Northern Illinois Route.
Freedom seekers making the trek by way of the Underground Railroad.
A lot of people think the Underground Railroad was involved with secret rooms and tunnels.
It wasn't an actual railroad, but instead something even more remarkable and life-changing as we know it today.
A lot of the seekers would follow the Rock River up through Dixon into Ogle County and past Byron, so it was a natural place to stop.
The Underground Railroad was an organized secret network to freedom. The system even used railroading terms. Homes and businesses where Black people would rest and eat were called stations and depots, and the conductor was responsible for moving them from one station to the next.
This was a real thing. It really did happen, and we have specific proof about it.
Enslaved Black people traveling from the violence of their plantations to seek safety in northern cities.
Church members would get together at night and figure this out. They would contact the people in, say, Polo, and say, send a message ahead saying, I am sending 3 packages tomorrow to arrive, 2 large crates and 1 small crate. Well, of course, that meant people.
In Byron, Lucius Reed's house provided sanctuary for escaping slaves.
The Reeds, like most congregational church members, were anti-slavery, and they were willing to risk breaking federal law to assist those passengers that came through.
The law at the time was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. It required slaves be returned to their owners even if they were in a free state. The Reed family going against the grain, helping them hide, but it wasn't easy.
The slave catchers weren't stupid. They would pose as conductors, somebody who would help, when in reality they were to trap them. There was trickery on both sides.
That's why secret codes were so necessary.
For instance, if you were in Missouri and you were looking for a place to cross the Mississippi River, you wouldn't say that. You would say, we're looking to cross the River Jordan. Because that could be something you heard in the sermon last week. You'd say, we want to arrive in the land of Canaan. That's code for Canada. And there was a whole lot of other code words along with that.
Once freedom seekers made it to Byron, families like the Reeds would use every part of their home as a safe haven.
It's one of the oldest brick houses. It's 2 stories. It's a very, very typical, and it has a cellar. That cellar, back in the slave days, was entered secretly from the backyard of the Reed house.
On the destination to freedom, Black escapees and conductors always had to stay one step ahead.
Somewhere along the route, if it didn't happen before Byron, somebody would have to create false documents for them, because every black person, free or slave, had to carry papers to show their status.
Dan Wykes, an educator with the Byron Museum, says freedom seekers came from Polo to Byron and then to Lindenwood, Illinois. But some places, even up north, weren't safe.
They would skip Mount Morris because that's kind of on the route, because Mount Morris was founded by people from Maryland, which is a slave state. And so they couldn't be sure of the politics of the people in Mount Morris.
The Underground Railroad had many notable participants, but the freedom seekers were the real heroes, risking their lives for a better tomorrow and exposing the grim realities of slavery.
There's where the real bravery was. For a white conductor, yes, they were at risk legally, but their life wasn't at risk. But as a traveling freedom seeker, you were at risk the entire time.
When we return, we introduce you to the men behind 815 Capital, a Black-owned investment firm here in Rockford. Their efforts to build Black home ownership.
What does Black History Month mean to you?
Black History Month means to me it's a way to empower and appreciate Black culture and Black people.